Hey guys, this is Tiffany with the Nerdettes, and oh gosh, okay, so Walking Dead Season 8, Episode 14, and its title still gotta mean something. So I'm gonna really kind of hit the lowlights first, just the kind of fluff, and then we'll hit the meat and potatoes of this episode, and just kind of hopefully go through this kind of quick. So basically, I want to get to Negan and Jadis last because, oh my gosh, I want to talk about that a lot. So let's cover just the other characters real quick. So we find out Tara, of everyone who got shot or wounded, she's the only one who is not sick. She's the only one who hasn't gotten that like fever or turned or anything like that. So, and she was shot with an arrow by Dwight, and so she's trying to tell Daryl that obviously this just proves that he's not really against them and all this stuff. And of course, Daryl, I mean, his faith in humanity, I mean, has long been out the window. So, you know how he is. Morgan is still having visions of Henry, like it's still like very much like getting to him in his head. And of course, he and Carol decide to go, like, they're trying to look for him, and at the same time, they're trying to find these saviors, because Morgan is on this vendetta. He's going to kill every last one of them, especially the one that killed Benjamin. So the very last savior, because Rick is also going after these saviors. That last savior that's at Hilltop that kind of decided to stay whenever all the commotion happened and the pen was open and has kind of, become part of like the community. His like parting words to Rick are, don't shoot more than you have to, basically, because some of these people just, didn't think. They didn't really have a choice, maybe. They just ran. And to like think about that, like put yourself in their shoes, and Rick's like, yeah, sure, whatever. So anyway, so they so Morgan and Carol, like, they're looking for Henry. They find a walker with his bow staff and through its middle, and they retrieve it. Rick, all of a sudden out of nowhere, like when he's trying to find he's with Morgan trying to find the saviors at some point, because Carol and he split ways because Morgan wants to go towards this herd of walkers, like a ginormous herd, and Carol's like, no, I think we'll find them in the woods, and Morgan is like on his own path. Like, it's really strange, and no matter what Carol tries to say to him, he's tunnel vision. So they part ways. Morgan ends up running into Rick, almost shoots him, doesn't happen obviously. And they, out of nowhere, Rick gets hit, plowed right through, and it fades to black. He wakes up, and him and Morgan are pretty much chained or roped to this unit inside of this, like, they were going to find these walkers in, like, this dive bar that had been abandoned, that the walkers were using for, the walkers are heading towards it. The saviors were going to use it as like another outpost or something. So Rick and Morgan were heading here anyways when they saw, obviously the walkers, and the saviors got them anyway. So so they're there, and Rick is trying to talk to him, like, you kind of feel like maybe he took that guy's, word and his advice, and he's thinking about, like, bringing some of these guys back to Alexandria, and he's like, look, I promise you let us go. I mean, he seems to empathize with them, and he's like, just let me go, and, I give you my word that we'll go back to the Hilltop, and, everything will be good, and you can be part of the community, and it won't be like you've been dealing with the Savior. So a lot of them seem to be influenced by this, and, and this is where that title comes into play. It's like Rick says, a man's word has still got to mean something. There's nothing else that means anything in this world and the way it is except for a man's word, which, I mean, is very true in a variety of ways, but obviously, as we quickly learn, that's not the case. And, I mean, so basically the walkers come in, they storm the place, they are, killing saviors left and right, like they're, tearing into them. And so Rick and Morgan are finally released by this savior who is, determined that he's going to join them and go back to the Hilltop and, be swayed to their side of things. And Like, he even saves Rick's life from being bitten and everything. And Rick and Morgan still kill them anyway. Like, they kill all the saviors first before they even kill the walkers. So they just kill them all. And it's like, it's this crazy, like, I don't even know what to call it. It's like a duplicity. I don't even know what you want to call it. Like, two-facedness, whatever you want to call it. It's like the complete antithesis of what Rick was saying. And, you know, like, Morgan lets the guy that killed Benjamin, like, he basically pulls him up against, like, this gate until the walkers get him, and they're, like, ripping the flesh from his cheeks and his shoulder, and finally he lets him go and just watches him be devoured, essentially. So, like, he does this, you know, and Rick, like, is brought to task, like, one of the saviors who's obviously bleeding out and dying, is like, what, I thought, you know, we were going to go to Hilltop, I thought this is, you know, and Rick's like, I lied, big deal, you know, and shoots him. I mean, you know, puts him out of his misery, but at the same time, it's like, what the hell, you know? And Morgan actually mentions that the only thing, like, that made him save Rick in the past, like, in the very beginning, that first season, those first few episodes, the only reason he helped Rick and saved him was because his son was there. And that's what he tells Rick. I mean, so maybe it's just almost like some sort of, like, explanation to say, oh, the reason that Rick is so okay with turning on them is because of Carl's death and everything that happened with it, you know, how they were attacked by the saviors at Alexandria, and how the walkers were consuming the place as well as the saviors, and obviously Carl got bit, and maybe, I mean, in many ways, maybe he has his own vengeance to kind of see through with all this. So anyways, like, it goes back to Carol, you know, she hears a cry for help. It's obviously Henry. She, you know, goes, she saves them. They go back to Hilltop. You know, obviously Ezekiel's, you know, very relieved because he feared the worst, as did Carol. Carol had put it in her mind that there was no use in going to look for him. There was no way he could survive by himself. There's just no way. And he did. I mean, he really did. I mean, he he almost died there, you know, in the, kind of like in the lake or the swamp right there where these like 3 or 4 walkers attacked him, but they didn't get to him. Luckily, Carol saved his life and everything was good. So and then Morgan and Rick come back, and, like, you can see, like, that savior that talked to him before he left, you know, kind of knows, you know, that he didn't spare anybody, he didn't bring anybody back, you know. So anyways, we see Eugene briefly, you know. Daryl and Rosita see him because they've determined that obviously they have this, they can get whatever ammo they need because they have Eugene, the master wizard of ammunition and you know, of basic, you know, this chemistry and you know, munitions or whatnot. They see him, and they essentially, instead of, like, blowing up this factory, they've determined they've got to kill him. Whether they do or not, we'll see. And then, so we'll talk about how it ends kind of in a minute, but I want to get to the major part of this. I mean, you know, all that other stuff with, like, Morgan and Carol finding Henry, it's great, you know, lots of dialogue that was unnecessary in my opinion. But we actually get to see how Jadis escaped, which in my mind was very ingenious. I mean, come on. She sees one of her people that has fallen and bled out and is obviously, you know, dead and will be soon turning, I'm sure. She throws him under, like, this pool of blood, like, she hears the saviors killing her people. She throws him under a pile of junk along with, like, a blanket and a pillow to obscure the body completely, and puts herself over this pool of blood and puts some, like, on her jacket and pretends to be dead. Plays possum, as we say in the South. So we get to see that that's how she survived, was by doing that. And obviously it worked. This ploy worked. And then we see her, she's taken Lucille for herself. She's got Negan chained up, and obviously she blames him for what happened to the people at the junkyard. She's gonna kill him. Like, you know, Negan is, like, talking to her. He's like, look, it wasn't me who did this, but I'll own this. He basically owns the situation that happened, because, he still kind of blames himself because he did give Simon another chance, and obviously look at what Simon did. And he actually apologizes, which is very uncharacteristic for Negan. I mean, I feel like he knows when to take ownership, and he knows when to, I don't know, like, call out his own mistakes, in many ways. So, anyway, she is not listening. She wills out like this weird, like, walker. Obviously the junkyard has become notorious for, like, these Mad Max, like, walkers. So she's got one chained up really crazily to, like, this rolling cart. Like, its mouth is in part of the rail that you wheel it out in front of. So that's interesting. And of course Negan, is afraid he's going to die, but somehow, mysteriously, she just happened to leave this big bag of guns and a flare gun right next to him. So he gets a gun, he gets a flare gun, he's like firing it off, he's shooting it at her, or towards her direction, and this walker. She ducks and covers, and he finds like these snapshots, like Polaroids that are very like near and dear to her, and he's going to set fire to them, and she doesn't like if she tries to kill him anymore, and just all this other stuff. And like she's really worried because she needs the flare gun, and that's her only hope, and like those snapshots are the only thing that mean anything to her, as Negan quickly deduces. And he's got her at a weird disadvantage, but at the same time he knows that she's going to try to damage Lucille. He talks to her about Lucille, and he actually goes into his past a little bit, which I was very happy about. He actually talks about Lucille, like it was his wife's name. He named his bat that. He said that his wife got him through this, through the tough times, through the walkers, through everything that's gone on. Like, obviously she didn't make it, but at the same time, this bat, he gave it her name because it's gotten him through this as well. So, this is like his last piece of her, his last piece of even himself, maybe. And she's about to set fire to it. And all of a sudden, there's a helicopter out of nowhere that happens to fly overhead, and you see it hover like midair and almost look directly at them. And she's like trying desperately to grab the flare gun. And right as she grabs it, it just so happens to turn and pivot almost in a full like 180 and goes the opposite direction. It's too late for her to try to get its attention with a flare. So anyway, so Negan's talking to her again. He's like, look, enough is enough. Don't hurt Lucille. I can settle it. I can settle this all. And, he basically kind of alludes to how he trusted Simon and he backstabbed him and all this other stuff. And Negan eventually gets back to Sanctuary, and he's like, don't tell anybody. It's a surprise. Big surprise when Simon and them get back, I'm sure. But yeah, it ends with basically Rick and Michonne. We find out that Rick still hasn't read his letter to him. Obviously, he read Negan's to him, but he has yet to read his own. And he keeps putting it off. And Michonne is like kind of pushing him a little bit. She's like, have you read it? And he's like, no. So, obvious kind of conclusions for this, maybe one of the next episodes towards the finale. Oh, heads are going to roll. Negan, obviously, watching the series, and really this is just what keeps me watching this at all, is Jeffrey D. Morgan and his portrayal as Negan. Obviously, that's the only thing that makes this show worth it to me. So, obviously, the fact that at some point heads are going to roll and it's going to be Simon's makes me want to keep watching, because I want to see Simon's head roll, as is well deserved. And I want to just see the justice of it and how Negan goes about it. Can't wait for that. Rick's probably going to finally read his letter, and I don't know if it's going to have a profound effect on him. Maybe. Because as we know, when Carl passed, like, he brought, the doctor in, and, he saved him. So he was very much about saving people and giving them the benefit of the doubt, keeping, like, that strand of humanity, that essence of humanity to still try to save people, not like the saviors, but in that humane, like neighborly almost way. So we'll see if Rick kind of takes on that change of ideal. I don't know. But yeah, ultimately, I'm just excited to see what Negan does. I mean, really, that's the only reason I'm gonna continue watching at this point. Is yeah, it's gotten to where like the way his acting just carries everything with these episodes. Hopefully, we'll see what he does. So anyway, that's all for still. This episode 14 still got to mean something, and if you're not watching the show, or if you're trying to see what's going on to see if you want to get back into it, I mean, there's high points, there's low points. It's like Dragon Ball Z. A lot of like dialogue and powering up, and no big like fights. So we'll see what happens. I mean, there's that action with the walkers and the saviors. Yay. The justice that Morgan finally gets with the guy that killed Benjamin. Henry's okay. So we'll see. We'll see. I think there's definitely going to be a flame more so between Ezekiel and Carol. So yeah, more to be determined later. But yeah, that's all I got. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/thenerdets. We thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!